Leadership is not about temperament, but about character. Leaders are not born, they're made because they have practiced character.
If you ask the average man, are you a good leader and protector and provider of your family? The vast majority of men are doing their best. They are trying to lead and protect their families, but the goods of the material world are temporary. If we really want to do the best for our wives and for our children, we have to lead them to eternity.
This term, servant leader, is important for us men to understand. Jesus is a servant. He came to serve, not to be served. Jesus is leader. Come follow me. So we who follow him, we have to be both. If we are just leader, we're susceptible to pride. If we're just servant, we also can be susceptible to mediocrity. I must hold them both.
Often we hide behind this false notion of humility. It becomes a certain spinelessness. We are pushover to abdicate the public sphere. Service is strong. It is meekness and zeal combined together, that you serve a cause that's higher than yourself. We are all called to be leaders, to really achieve greatness in whatever sphere that you are called to.
Culture tells us it's all about you. Do what you want. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to this. Buy this, buy that. It's all about me. Talk isn't cheap. Talk is free. Talk is nothing. I care about you. I love you, right? But then if I'm taking care of myself first and everybody else second, it doesn't matter.
Being a man is about service. Right? It's about living our life for another. To be a servant leader is to love the other person, and to love the other person, you have to die to self.
I kind of equate this to martyrdom. A lot of guys are like, I'd be willing to die for that, but they're not willing to live for it. And guess what? If you're not willing to live for it, you probably won't have what it takes to die for it eventually.
So as fathers, I think you can have two extremes. You can have the extreme of, I just bark orders and expect you to follow. Or this idea of, I'm just not connected. I just kind of go through the motions. And that idea of servant leadership looks at the virtue, the middle ground of saying, what do I need to do to help my children excel, to know Christ, but also how do I shape them as a human being? And so it's really looking to say, what do I need to do to serve, and then doing it.
Oftentimes, the concept of servant leadership is used as an excuse to abdicate the strength and authority that's required of genuine and authentic leadership. Whereas we need to understand that leadership itself is a service, because leadership itself is humility and magnanimity in action. That is to say, pursuing and achieving greatness by bringing out the greatness in those that I lead.
For me, the most important thing is not really the idea of service, it's fundamentally the idea of greatness, which is there is no servant leadership where there is no greatness. Aristotle was used to say that a magnanimous man is a man who considers himself worthy of great things. Well, when you think about that in terms of Christianity, you see what the people that really considers themselves worthy of great things are the Christians. Because you're a son of God. There cannot be something higher than that.
So I left home in 1977, got on a plane for the first time, went to Colorado Springs, then I entered the Air Force Academy. Lucky enough to go to pilot training, and so that was really the beginning of my career. Got to fly fighters for 30 years. I got to fly the A-10, the F-117, the F-16. I got to command at the squadron level, got to deploy to Saudi Arabia with 300 people. I commanded overseas about 10,000 people. So you go from someone who is just, very much focused on the machine and maybe your pilot brothers, those who operate machines with you, to the broader organization. It's the most rewarding part of your career is when you see people thrive. Servant leadership in the military, you can use your authority to lead, or you can use your leadership ability to get people to follow you. You have to smell like the sheep. You have to spend time with them. I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself. If I say, hey, you have to go to church every Sunday, son, then I ought to be the one who does it first. You got to talk the talk and walk the walk. I can remember at Aviano one time we had this wicked storm that came through, and it knocked down trees all over the place. Didn't do a thing the next day, didn't do any flying at all, because we had to clean the place up. And so I picked up a chainsaw, and so it's doing that kind of stuff and throwing wood in the back of trucks and cleaning things up and doing those kind of things. So it's willingness to do those unpleasant tasks, to sweat and bleed and suffer with others. St. Francis of Assisi gave up everything to be among the common people, to beg, basically gave his life, a very comfortable life, up to serve Christ. Mother Teresa of Calcutta, she would go out in the streets of Calcutta, find people that were in gutters with maggots and stuff in their wounds, and hug them and clean them. Padre Pio, one of my favorites, would stay for hours hearing confessions and doing everything to bring people to God. Christ died on the cross, and I think that's the ultimate example of servant leadership. I think God made us all capable to do things that we never in a million years thought that we were going to do. And in fact, there's that saying, let go and let God. I think that applies a lot to leadership. Have the courage to get in that situation, step into the breach. Leadership implies that you're bringing people with you. Sometimes you can lead from the front, sometimes you can lead by example, sometimes you just have to slam dunk and say, we're going to do it this way. As long as you respect the other, those who are coming with you, people over the long term will follow you, even if you have to do things that are unpleasant for them over the short term.
Often we confuse leadership with merely being in a position of power. These are the leaders because they have power, or these are leaders because they have influence. This isn't true leadership necessarily. Leadership is the virtues specifically of magnanimity and humility. Magnanimity is the habit of striving for greatness. It's the recognition that you are made worthy to accomplish great things. And humility is the habit of living in the truth, which means the truth about myself and the truth about others. That is to say, self-knowledge, which can then flow through my skills, my talents, my gifts, and my virtues into service of the others.
First, you need magnanimity to say, I am not just a sinner, I am a son of God. And I want to live out my divine sonship. And I want to help people discover this divine sonship in their lives. We love the word service, but we don't understand what greatness is about. We become small in our breathing, of thinking, of doing things. And we have to rediscover the virtue of magnanimity.
When I think of Christ and I think of servant leadership, I think of Holy Thursday. I think of when he takes off his robe and he puts the towel around his waist and he washes the feet of his apostles.
What was the main mode of transportation back at the time of Jesus? It was walking. They were a pedestrian society. So he got to somebody's house. Who came and washed your feet? The lowest ranking servant. And what does Jesus say? If I don't wash your feet, you can have no part of me. I have not come to be served, but to serve. So headship is rooted in service. A man is the head of his family precisely because he is the chief servant of his wife and children.
Jesus shows us a fundamental truth, which is the most important level of leadership is self-control. And so you need to have men who are living the virtues.
Self-mastery is about restraining evil passions and desires, but also I need to energize noble passions. If you simply restrain, you become boorish and tasteless. You need to be able to yourself be excited and be driven, because then you can draw other people along with you and help them achieve truly great things. Life is short and eternity is long. We may like the idea of virtuous leadership. We may be inspired by the idea of going into the breach. But so long as we remain sitting in our chairs and not jumping in, we remain just spectators and we're not engaging in the fight. I'm reminded particularly of a quote by Archbishop John Ireland of the late 19th century. The need in the church today, the need in the world, is of men among men who can rise higher, who can see further, who can strive more nobly than others. They need not be many. They never were many. But though the few, they will rise and bring with them the whole of humanity.